The evening was quiet, and the sun was slowly disappearing behind the trees. The road looked almost empty, only a few cars passed from time to time. Sarah was driving alone, her hands tight on the steering wheel. She was already tired from a long day at work, and all she wanted was to reach home, rest, and forget about her worries. The road stretched endlessly in front of her, and there was nothing but silence inside the car. Suddenly, she felt the car shake. A strange sound came from the back wheel. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. She slowed down, and the car came to a stop. When she stepped outside, she saw what she feared, a flat tire. Her chest tightened with stress. She had never been good with cars, and she had no idea how to fix this. The long road around her looked lonely, and no one seemed to be nearby. Sarah checked her phone, but the signal was weak. The thought of being stuck here for hours made her feel nervous. She bent down, tried to open the tools in the trunk, and attempted to change the tire. But her hands shook, and nothing worked the way it should. After a few minutes, she sat on the ground, her eyes filling with tears of frustration. That was when she heard footsteps. A figure appeared at a distance, walking towards her. For a moment, Sarah froze. Her mind filled with questions. Who could it be? Was he safe, or was she in danger? Her heartbeat grew faster, but she had no other option. The man stopped a few steps away and gave her a gentle smile. He looked calm, wearing simple clothes, carrying nothing in his hands. "Looks like you need help," he said in a warm voice. Sarah hesitated but nodded slowly. His eyes showed no harm, only kindness, and something about his calmness made her breathe easier. Without asking too many questions, he moved towards the tire and knelt down. Sarah stood silently, watching him. His hands worked with steady movements, like he had done this many times before. The sound of metal tools clicking filled the air. Sarah felt both relief and curiosity. Who was this stranger who appeared out of nowhere at the exact moment she needed someone? As he worked, the man asked softly, "You were driving alone? Must have been scary." Sarah gave a small smile and whispered, "Yes. I didn't know what to do." Her voice was low, but he seemed to understand her fear. He kept working, never making her feel uncomfortable. Minutes passed, and finally, the spare tire was fixed. The stranger stood up, wiping his hands on his jeans. "All done," he said simply, with that same kind smile. Sarah looked at him with surprise. He had helped her without expecting anything. She quickly searched her bag for money to thank him, but before she could, he gently raised his hand. "No need," he said. "Just drive safe." For a moment, Sarah felt speechless. People usually helped for something in return, but this man had walked away as if it was nothing. She wanted to ask his name, to know who he was, but her words got stuck in her throat. He turned to leave, and she just stood there, watching his back fade into the distance. As Sarah sat back in her car, her heart felt strange. The road was the same, the night was the same, but something inside her had changed. That small act of kindness had touched her in a way she could not explain. It was as if life had sent her a message through a stranger. While driving away, she replayed the moment in her head again and again. His voice, his calmness, his smile, it all stayed with her. Sarah had been living in loneliness for a long time, hiding her pain behind her work and silence. But that evening, on a quiet road, a simple act of kindness lit a small flame inside her heart. She did not know that this was only the beginning. She did not know that the man who fixed her tire would soon return in her life, not just to fix her car, but to fix something much deeper. The next few days passed, but Sarah's mind was restless. She tried to return to her normal routine, but something inside her had changed. Every time she sat in her car, her thoughts drifted back to that evening on the road. She could still see the stranger's kind smile, hear his calm voice, and remember the way he fixed her tire so effortlessly. At night, when she lay down in bed, she caught herself wondering about him. Who was he? Where did he come from? Why did he help her and then disappear without even giving his name? It felt unusual, almost like a dream. She told herself to forget about it, but her heart refused to listen. One Saturday morning, Sarah decided to go out for breakfast at a small cafe she liked in the city. It was her little escape from the stress of life. She chose a quiet table near the window, ordered coffee, and opened her notebook. Writing her thoughts always gave her comfort. She was lost in her words when she suddenly felt a strange pull, like someone's presence was near. Slowly, she lifted her eyes. Her breath caught in her chest. There he was, the same stranger who had appeared on the road. He was standing near the counter, waiting for his order, looking just as calm and gentle as she remembered. For a moment, Sarah froze, unsure if her eyes were playing tricks. But no, it was truly him. Her heart began to race. Should she call out to him? What if he didn't remember her? What if he thought she was strange for approaching? 1,000 questions ran through her mind, but before she could decide, the stranger turned. His eyes landed on her, and recognition flashed across his face. He smiled. That same smile which had comforted her on the road. Slowly, he walked toward her table. "You again," he said lightly, as if fate had planned this moment. Sarah felt her cheeks warm. "Yes. I guess destiny wanted us to meet again," she replied softly. He laughed gently and sat down across from her when she invited him. "I didn't even get your name that day," he said. Sarah introduced herself, and then he finally shared his name, Daniel. The name sounded warm, simple, and somehow fitting for the man who had appeared in her life like a guardian angel. They began talking. At first, it was about the flat tire incident, but soon the conversation flowed into other topics. Sarah was surprised at how easy it was to speak with him. She usually struggled to open up to people, but Daniel had a way of listening that made her feel safe. He didn't interrupt, didn't judge. He just listened with calm eyes that told her he cared. Hours passed without her noticing. For the first time in years, Sarah laughed freely. Daniel shared small stories about his life, about traveling, about helping strangers, about finding happiness in simple things. Sarah found herself hanging on to every word. She realized how much she had been starving for real conversation, for genuine connection. When they finally left the cafe, Sarah felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, lightness. Daniel walked her to her car, and as he said goodbye, he simply told her, "It was nice talking with you. I hope we meet again." His words echoed in her mind even after he walked away. Over the next few days, Sarah found herself returning to the same cafe, secretly hoping to see him again. And fate was kind, Daniel showed up more than once. Soon, it became a pattern. Sometimes they would meet at the cafe, other times they would take walks in the nearby park. Each time, Sarah felt her world slowly opening up. She began to share pieces of her heart with him. She told him about her loneliness, about how she had been carrying pain from her past. Daniel never pushed her, never asked for details she wasn't ready to give. Instead, he reminded her gently that healing takes time and that she wasn't alone anymore. One evening, as they sat by the river, Sarah looked at Daniel's face in the fading light. She realized something powerful. The man who had once appeared to fix her tire was now fixing something far more important, her broken soul. She felt both afraid and hopeful. Afraid of what her heart was starting to feel, but hopeful that maybe this was the beginning of something she had been waiting for her whole life. The days slowly turned into weeks, and Sarah's life began to change in quiet, beautiful ways. What had once felt like a heavy routine now carried small sparks of joy. She woke up in the mornings with a lighter heart, knowing that she might see Daniel again. Sometimes they planned their meetings, and other times fate seemed to bring them to the same place by surprise. Each moment felt like a gift she had not asked for but deeply needed. Daniel had a way of making the world look softer. He noticed details others ignored, the sound of birds in the park, the laughter of children, the golden color of sunsets. Sarah often found herself watching him as he spoke, wondering how a stranger could suddenly feel like someone she had known all her life. They began to share deeper stories. Sarah told him about her loneliness, about how she had been hurt in the past and had stopped trusting people. Her voice trembled when she spoke, but Daniel listened quietly, never rushing her. He didn't try to fix her pain with empty promises. Instead, he simply said, "It's okay to be broken. Sometimes broken things can still be beautiful." Those words stayed with her. Sarah felt seen, truly seen, for the first time in years. She realized she had been carrying her sadness like a secret, believing no one would understand. But Daniel understood without judgment, and that made her heart ache with gratitude. One evening, they went for a walk along the riverside. The air was cool, and the lights from the city reflected on the water. Sarah felt unusually brave that night. She turned to him and asked, "Why did you help me that day? You didn't even know me." Daniel paused for a moment, his eyes thoughtful. "Because I know what it feels like to be stuck on the side of the road, hoping someone will stop," he said softly. "I promised myself, whenever I can, I'll be that someone." Sarah's chest tightened at his words. She wanted to ask more about his life, but he quickly changed the subject with a smile. She could sense there was something he wasn't ready to share, and she respected that. Their friendship grew, but Sarah could feel something more building in her heart. Every time Daniel looked at her, every time he smiled or said her name, she felt a warmth spreading inside her. It was a feeling she had almost forgotten existed, a feeling she had once been too afraid to hope for. One night, as they sat in the cafe where their story had begun again, Daniel looked at her with unusual seriousness. His hands rested on the table, his fingers tapping nervously. Sarah noticed the change in his expression. "Sarah," he began, his voice low, "there's something I should tell you." Her heart skipped. "What is it?" she asked carefully. Daniel hesitated, then sighed. "I've been offered a job, in another city. It's something I can't ignore. And if I accept, I'll have to leave soon." The words hit her like a cold wind. For a moment, she couldn't speak. The cafe around her blurred as she tried to process what he had just said. Leave. The thought of Daniel disappearing from her life felt unbearable. He had become her light, her comfort, her safe place. How could she face the world without him? She forced a small smile, though her chest ached. "That's good news for you," she whispered. "Congratulations." Daniel searched her face, as if trying to read the emotions she was hiding. "I don't know if it's good or not," he admitted. "Because leaving here means leaving you." Her eyes widened at his words, but before she could reply, the waiter arrived with their coffee, breaking the moment. Sarah looked down at the cup in front of her, her hands trembling slightly. Her mind was racing with questions, fear, and emotions she didn't know how to handle. That night, when she returned home, she lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. For the first time, she admitted to herself what her heart had been trying to tell her all along. She was falling for him. The man who had once been a stranger on a lonely road had become the most important part of her world. And now, she was afraid of losing him. But she also knew one thing for sure: whatever time they had left, she wasn't going to waste it. The days after Daniel's confession felt heavy for Sarah. Every time she saw him, her heart filled with both happiness and sadness. Happiness, because she got to be with him. Sadness, because every smile and every word reminded her that soon he might be gone. She tried to act normal, laughing at his jokes and joining him on walks, but deep inside she carried a storm of emotions. Each moment felt like borrowed time, slipping away faster than she could hold on. One evening, they decided to meet at the riverside again. The air was cool, and the sky was painted with shades of orange and purple. Sarah looked at Daniel as he stood by the water, the wind brushing his hair, and she realized how deeply he had become a part of her world. "Do you know when you'll be leaving?" she finally asked, her voice trembling slightly. Daniel looked down at the water. "In 2 weeks," he said quietly. Her chest tightened at the words. 2 weeks. Just 14 days before he would walk out of her life. She wanted to scream, to beg him to stay, but the fear of rejection kept her silent. Instead, she whispered, "That's soon." He nodded, but his eyes lingered on her face, as if memorizing every detail. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence carried all the feelings they were too afraid to say aloud. Over the next days, Sarah tried to be strong. She met him whenever she could, treasured every conversation, every laugh, every shared secret. But when she was alone, she cried quietly into her pillow, terrified of the emptiness that was waiting for her. One night, they sat together at the cafe where it had all started. The soft light made the moment feel intimate, but Sarah's heart was pounding. She couldn't hold back anymore. "Daniel," she said suddenly, her voice shaking, "what happens when you leave? Will you forget me?" He looked at her with surprise, then leaned forward. "Forget you?" His voice was firm. "Sarah, how could I ever forget you?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Because people always leave. And when they leave, they move on. But the ones who are left behind, they keep hurting. Daniel reached out and gently held her hand. His touch was warm, steady, and it made her tears fall harder. "I don't want to hurt you," he said softly. "You've become important to me, more than I ever expected. Leaving doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean I stop caring." Sarah wanted to believe him, but fear whispered inside her heart. She had been broken before, and now, just when she had started to heal, she was about to lose the very person who had fixed her. The night grew heavy with emotions. Sarah wiped her tears and forced a small smile. "Then let's make the most of the time we have," she said. And so they did. Over the next week, they lived like every day was a gift. They walked through parks, shared meals, laughed at small things, and sometimes just sat in silence, holding on to the comfort of each other's presence. But even in those moments of joy, Sarah felt the shadow of goodbye waiting at the corner. Every time Daniel smiled, her heart broke a little more, knowing soon that smile would not be hers to see. On the night before his departure, Daniel asked her to meet him one last time at the riverside. The moonlight shone on the water, and the air was filled with quiet sadness. Sarah's heart was racing as she walked toward him, knowing this could be their final moment together. Daniel turned to her, his eyes filled with emotions he could no longer hide. "Sarah," he said softly, "you've changed me. You reminded me what it means to feel alive again. Meeting you was not an accident, it was destiny." Her tears flowed freely now. "Then why do you have to go?" she asked, her voice breaking. He gently cupped her face in his hands. "Because sometimes life takes us on different roads. But no matter where I go, you'll always be in my heart." Sarah broke down, unable to hold her pain any longer. "You fixed my tire that day," she whispered, "but you also fixed something inside me. And now, I don't know how to let you go." Daniel pulled her into an embrace, holding her tightly as if he never wanted to let go. The night was filled with silence, broken only by the sound of her quiet sobs and his steady heartbeat. Neither of them spoke again. They didn't need to. Their silence said everything, that love had found them, even if it came with heartbreak. The morning after their emotional night by the river, Sarah woke up with swollen eyes. She had barely slept, replaying Daniel's words again and again. Her heart was torn in two, one half grateful for the love she had found, the other half crushed by the thought of losing it. She sat on her bed, staring at her phone. She wanted to call him, to hear his voice one more time before he left. But her fingers refused to move. What could she say? Goodbye. It felt impossible. Hours passed slowly, each minute heavy like a stone. Finally, she gathered the courage to drive to the cafe where they had shared so many memories. She hoped to see him one last time, but when she arrived, his chair was empty. The sight broke her heart. It was real now, he was gone. Sarah sat down and ordered coffee, tears threatening to fall. She whispered to herself, "He fixed my tire, he fixed my heart, and then he left me broken again." Just then, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Daniel. Her hands shook as she opened it. "I couldn't say goodbye to you properly. Meeting you was the best part of my life, Sarah. Don't think of this as the end. Think of it as the beginning of something that distance can't destroy." Her tears spilled freely. She clutched the phone to her chest, wishing she could stop time, wishing she could hold on to him forever. But deep down, she knew he was right. Love didn't disappear with distance. It lived in the heart, where no miles could erase it. Weeks passed. Life slowly returned to its usual rhythm, but Sarah was not the same. She had been changed by the stranger who had appeared on a lonely road. She found herself stronger, braver, and more hopeful than before. Even when she felt lonely, she remembered Daniel's words, his smile, his steady hands fixing her tire, and fixing her soul. One rainy afternoon, Sarah drove home from work. The sound of raindrops on the car roof reminded her of that night months ago. Her chest ached with longing. She whispered, "Daniel, I miss you," as tears blurred her vision. Suddenly, the car hit a pothole, and she felt it shake. Her heart dropped. Another flat tire. She pulled over and sat silently, memories flooding her. She almost laughed through her tears. How strange life is, she thought. The story began with a flat tire, and now, here I am again. She stepped out into the rain, ready to face it alone this time. She had learned strength, and she wanted to prove it to herself. But as she bent down to check the tire, a familiar voice called out behind her. "Looks like you still need me for this." Her body froze. Slowly, she turned around. There he was, Daniel. Standing in the rain, smiling at her with the same warmth she had carried in her heart for months. For a moment, she couldn't move. Her eyes filled with tears, and her lips trembled. "Daniel," she whispered. How are you here?" He walked closer, rain dripping from his hair, his eyes locked on hers. "I thought leaving would be the right choice for my career. But every day away from you felt empty. I realized my heart belongs here, with you." Sarah's tears turned into a smile as she ran into his arms. He held her tightly, the rain falling around them, but neither cared. In that embrace, all the pain, all the waiting, melted away. "You came back," she whispered against his chest. "I could never stay away," he replied softly. "That day I fixed your tire, I thought it was just a small act of kindness. But it was more than that. It was the start of us." Sarah laughed through her tears. "You didn't just fix my tire that day, Daniel. You fixed my heart." They stood together in the rain, not as strangers anymore, but as two souls who had finally found home in each other. The lonely road that once brought Sarah fear had brought her the greatest gift of her life. And she knew now, no matter what roads lay ahead, she wouldn't walk them alone again.